In the vast theatre of political opportunism, few actors have worn their roles with such flamboyance and elasticity as Nigel Farage. Once a devout apostle at the altar of Donald Trump, Farage has now performed the oldest trick in the populist playbook. He's sniffed the shifting winds and decided somewhat belatedly to bay with the crowd rather than stand with the storm. The question before us is not whether Farage has betrayed Trump, but whether this betrayal tells us something deeper about his political integrity, his statesmanship, and the limits of populist camaraderie. Only 2 days ago, Farage was still touting his friendship with Donald Trump, invoking the name of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, also a friend of mine. I'm not shallow, he assures us, as if name-dropping might lend his sudden policy shift a touch of gravitas. But then came the collapse, the markets in freefall, bonds and stocks doing an ill-fated synchronized dive, and tariffs flying around the globe like shrapnel in a badly damaged battle. And so, like Peter outside the Praetorium, Farage denied his saviour thrice. On LBC he lamented, "I've never agreed with the tariff policy. I think Trump did too much too soon, rather like Liz Truss did a couple of years ago. This is the most unkind cut of all." Not just distancing, but comparison with Liz Truss. I made this comparison days ago. A woman whose premiership lasted less time than some yogurts. You remember the story of Hodja Nasreddin, who's trying to make yogurt in a lake, and he's adding bits of milk to the lake, and one of his disciples comes up to him and says, "Hey, Hodja, you can't turn the whole lake into yogurt." And he says, "Ya tu tasa, you can try." Well, there comes a point where trying is stupidity. Ya tu tasa. You admire it when a holy man tries to do something as a demonstration, as a symbol, as a parable. But in reality, when somebody sits by a lake pouring in yogurt, saying, I want to turn the whole lake into yogurt, you know they've gone loopy. Knowing which way the wind is blowing is politics. Blowing with it while pretending to be the captain steering the ship, that's flatulence. It's not leadership. And true statesmanship lies in shaping the gusts, not being carried away by them. When Farage rode Trump's coattails in Arizona, he wasn't endorsing a man. He was aligning himself with a worldview, nationalist, transactional, and unashamedly pugilistic. And now, under pressure, Farage is trying to ghostwrite a new chapter of that relationship. He wants the benefits of Trumpism without the cost, the photo ops without the fiscal chaos, the rallies but not the repercussions. The quote, "remains to be seen." Well, that's not an answer. That's hedging your bets in a burning casino. Of course, Farage is no stranger to contradictory careers. This, after all, is a man whose register of outside interest reads like a parliamentary declaration, reads less like a parliamentary declaration and more like a networking spree at Davos. Since entering Parliament 9 months ago, he's amassed 10 second jobs, including 52,000 Australian dollars a year from Sky News Australia to offer views that, if history serves, he'll disown before the next fiscal quarter. We've got 204k from GB News, 81k from Baron App Inc., 40k for a speech to Nomad Capitalists, and nearly 300k from a gold company. Fitting, since he's been trading in political credibility like bullion. He claims 91k as an MP too, though it's unsure what his constituents in Clacton actually receive for their investment. So let's recall, Nigel Farage didn't merely support Trump, he exalted him. He stood on the podium in Phoenix, basked in his glow, parroted his talking points. And now, with Trump's tariffs causing economic whiplash, Farage is not defending his friend, he is repositioning. He said, "I understand China is an existential threat." A statement so safe, so diplomatic, it could have been said by Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, or a UN intern with a briefing note. This isn't principle, this is cover. And here's the final cruelty. Farage says Trump moved too fast, too bold, too soon, too much. But Trump's impulsiveness is not a revelation, it's the entire brand. criticising Trump for being Trumpish is like criticising a lion for roaring. Et tu, Nigel, then fall Trump. There's a difference between realpolitik and rear view mirror commentary, rear end politics. Farage didn't object to the fire until the house was smouldering. He didn't oppose Trump's tariffs until they opposed themselves. This isn't strategy, it's survival. This isn't statesmanship, it's betrayal by attrition. So let me say this plainly. If this is how you treat your political friends, I shudder to imagine how you treat your enemies, Mr. Farage. Farage has always known which way the wind is blowing. But steering a ship requires more than gusts and ego. It demands a compass, a keel, and the courage not to jump overboard when the waves get choppy. And Farage proves to be, well, not reliable. Consider that when you're voting in the election in May.